They said, "He's just an Apache." But when the bullet was fired, only the echo of the truth remained in the air. A black man raised his rifle, and the entire town bowed to his silent rage. He wasn't just saving them, he was restoring them to humanity. But as the value of humanity diminished just by bullets, or even by someone stopping them, the Arizona sun didn't rise. It punished. By mid-morning, the sky blazed like white fire, cracking the dirt beneath it. The wind had long given up whispering in these parts. Nothing moved, nothing dared, except him. Isaiah Boone stepped out of his weather-worn shack like a shadow in full light. Tall, lean, with shoulders square from years of war and silence. His skin dark as the riverbed in drought, hands callous from solitude. He limped slightly, not from weakness, but memory. The war had ended 7 years ago, but pieces of it still walked with him. Nobody came up this high, not past the Salt Ridge, especially not a black man living alone. He'd built this life to vanish, a ghost with a rifle, a mule, and a scar nobody saw. He fed the animals. He didn't talk. And the townsfolk? They liked him best invisible. The trough near the corral was dry, same as always. He uncorked the jug, poured slow, eyes on the mule swatting flies with its tail. That's when he saw it, just past the rail, slumped in the dirt, a figure. At first, he thought it was a coyote carcass, but the shape was wrong. And the silence, too human. He moved closer, instinct tight in his chest. His fingers brushed the butt of his revolver. Brown skin, bare legs scratched and bruised, leather dress torn to near nothing, black hair clinging to her back in sun-dried knots, blood crusted at her thigh, her side, the kind that speaks of days, not hours. And she was breathing, barely, his jaw clenched. Apache, he looked up at the horizon. No dust trail, no sound, but someone had chased her, and that someone might still be close. Isaiah stood still, every muscle ready to walk away. Not out of cruelty, out of memory. He knew what it meant to get involved, especially as a black man with a wounded native girl on his land. White law didn't care for reasons, and silence didn't save you when the posse came calling. But then her throat twitched, a dry gasp for life, and he heard it, not a word, just the will. He muttered a curse under his breath and dropped to one knee. Her skin was burning, fever high. He touched her pulse, weak but steady. She didn't open her eyes. She didn't fight. She'd already fought enough. He lifted her weightless, starved. Her side twitched in pain, and though the neckline of her dress had fallen, revealing too much, he looked away. He wasn't here to claim her. He was here to keep her breathing. Inside, the cabin was dark and cool. He laid her on the cot, cleared tools with one hand, and reached for whiskey with the other. The water boiled as he cut strips from an old Union shirt. Thread, needle, steady hands. Her thigh wound went deep, but clean through. Her side worse, packed with dirt, survival instincts, not medicine. He whispered to her as he cleaned and stitched, unsure she could hear. Words like cloth, rough but careful. Don't move. Don't fight. You're safe here. Even though he wasn't sure either of them were. That night, he sat by the fire, watching her chest rise and fall. The neckline of her dress had slipped again. He didn't touch it, didn't cover her either. The stitches might tear. He just watched the flames and listened. She murmured in her sleep. Apache, maybe, or prayers. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the pain. By dawn, her fever began to break. When her eyes finally opened, dark, sharp, defensive, she reached for a blade that wasn't there. Isaiah didn't flinch. "Easy," he said, voice deep and low. "You're not my prisoner. I just found you." He offered her water. She stared at the tin cup like it might explode. Then she reached out, and their fingers touched. Her hand was small, burned, calloused. She drank, and didn't stop watching him. He stepped back, sat across the room, hands open. Not a captor, not a savior, just a man who hadn't walked away. She didn't speak, but she didn't run either. And that was the beginning of everything. The second morning came with silence, but not peace. Inside the cabin, the air smelled of cedar smoke and sweat-soaked blankets. The girl still hadn't spoken, not a name, not a sound, but her eyes followed him now, not with fear, with calculation. Isaiah moved with care. He fried cornmeal and bacon on the cast-iron pan, slow and quiet, then placed a tin plate beside her cot and stepped back. She didn't reach for it first, just stared, at the food, at the door, at the rifle resting near the hearth. He didn't push. He sat across the room and started eating his own plate on the floor, one bite at a time, not close, not far, letting her decide what space felt safe. Minutes passed. Then, finally, she sat up, her breath hitched, the pain in her side still sharp. But she reached for the food. Her hands trembled. She guarded the plate like someone used to having things snatched away. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. Survival had no manners. Later that day, she tried to stand. Isaiah heard the thump and crash from the doorway. By the time he rushed inside, she was curled on the floor, one hand clenched at the bandage on her thigh. She tried to push him away as he reached to lift her, but her strength wasn't back yet, and his hands were steadied. He carried her like he was holding something sacred, not fragile, but worthy of care. Back to the cot. No shame, no words. Her dress was still torn at the neckline, still showed too much, but he never looked. She noticed that night. He sat on the porch, elbows on his knees, staring at the pale strip of moon sliding over the salt ridge. Coyotes called in the distance, but his thoughts were louder. Who was she running from? Why here? And why hadn't she tried to leave? Inside, she watched him from the cot, not sleeping, just watching, not out of suspicion, out of curiosity, like she was still deciding whether he was a man worth trusting or just another danger. When dawn broke, her voice finally came. Not much, just one word. Sanaa. He turned, startled. What? She pointed at herself. Sanaa. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. Isaiah, he said. Isaiah Boone. She didn't repeat it, but her eyes softened just a flicker. The ice had cracked. He poured her water, and this time, when their fingers touched, she didn't pull away. That afternoon, Isaiah took the mule up the ridge to check his traps. He followed the narrow path through dry brush and stone, but something felt off. Boot prints, fresh, 3 sets, 2 men, 1 horse. Riding light, fast, one dragging slightly at the heel, injured maybe, bounty hunters. Or worse. Isaiah crouched low, fingers on the dirt. They weren't just passing through. They were tracking. He made it back before dark. Sanaa was sleeping again, curled slightly toward the fire. Her bandage had shifted, the wound on her thigh barely visible now. He fixed it gently. She didn't wake. Then he sat by the door with his rifle across his lap. 6 rounds. No lantern that he waited for something he couldn't name, but knew was coming. By the time the fire burned down to orange coals, she stirred. Sat up, eyes on him. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. Sanaa, he said, who are you running from? Her jaw tensed. You don't have to say everything, he added. But I saw tracks. Men. Not far. She looked down at her hands. Raw, cracked fingers. Then she spoke, slow, broken English, but clear. 3 white men. Kill my uncle. Shoot my brother. Isaiah didn't move. They tie me. Say, sell me. South. Her voice didn't break. It was hollow, rehearsed, like she repeated it inside her own skull too many times. I cut rope. Night. Run. No food. No sleep. Many nights. He swallowed hard. You came all this way alone? She nodded once. That was all. But it was enough. Isaiah leaned back, rubbing his hand across his jaw. The firelight flickered over his face, tracing every scar and every line he hadn't earned easily. They come here, he said slowly. I'll deal with it. Sanaa's eyes flicked up, measuring him, testing if he meant it. He did. He didn't repeat it. He didn't have to. The next morning came with wind. Not the soft kind, but dry, whispering wind that slid under the skin and told you something was coming. Sanaa stood on her own now, not steady, not strong, but upright. She braced against the wall as she moved from cot to window, wrapped in Isaiah's old coat. Her torn leather dress hung beneath it, still split across the side, but she didn't pull at it anymore. Shame had long burned away. Survival didn't leave room for modesty. Isaiah noticed every movement she made, the limp in her left step, the way she kept her back to the corner, eyes on every exit. She wasn't healing like a patient. She was preparing like a soldier. They didn't speak much. She ate quietly, washed her face in a tin basin, let him check the bandages on her side. And when he touched her, she didn't flinch anymore. That afternoon, Isaiah showed her how to load his old Colt revolver. He spoke slow, with clear gestures. She watched carefully, absorbing each step with silent precision. No fear, no hesitation, only the steady stillness of someone who had already seen the worst. "You ever fired one of these before?" he asked, holding the cylinder open. Sanaa looked at the gun, then at him. "Once," she said, "first time they came." He didn't ask more. Didn't need to. That night, she didn't sleep on the cot. She sat near the hearth instead, legs curled beneath her, rifle across her lap, her eyes fixed on the door. Isaiah sat across from her, back resting against the frame, boots planted, hand never far from his own weapon. Outside, the coyotes were silent. Too silent. "You live alone long time?" she asked suddenly. He nodded. "Since the war." "You had family?" He hesitated. "A brother. Didn't make it." She looked at him. "Wife." He shook his head. "No. Never trusted anyone enough to stay." Sanaa didn't speak, but she moved closer. Her shoulder brushed his knee. "I stay," she whispered. "Not because I must. Because I choose." He looked at her. Not her wounds. Not her skin. Her words. And he nodded. By morning, the dust on the horizon had returned. Not a storm. Not wind. Tracks. 2 riders again, coming slow, confident. Isaiah loaded the rifle without a word. Sanaa tied her hair back with a strip of old cloth and picked up the revolver. She didn't shake. "You know them?" he asked, glancing toward the tree lean. She swallowed hard. "One named Fisk. Speaks some Apache. Said I was his now." Isaiah's jaw clenched. "The other laughed when they shot my brother." He nodded once. Inside the cabin, they started boarding up the windows, 1 plank at a time. No panic, no drama, just work. Her hands bled as she hammered with a stone. She didn't stop. That afternoon, he showed her where he'd buried the extra ammunition. Beneath the hearthstone, she memorized every step. By evening, the light began to fade, that slow orange stretch across the floor, always beautiful before something breaks. They sat together on the porch, a blanket over their legs. The wind moved her hair across her cheek. "You ever want to go back?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. "My people think I'm dead," she said. "Maybe I was." He looked at her. "You're not a guest here," he said. "You stay because it's yours too." She reached for his hand, held it, not trembling, not desperate, just sure. Later that night, the hooves came, slow, measured. Isaiah stood first, rifle in hand, peering through the crack in the boarded window. .2 riders. No lanterns, no talking, just the dull creak of saddle leather. Sanaa moved beside him, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, revolver at her side. "They come for me," she said. Isaiah didn't look away. "Then they'll leave with lead." She touched his wrist gently. "Don't die for me." "I'm not dying for you," he said. "I'm staying." Outside, the first man dismounted, broad shoulders, hat pulled low, coat dusty, boots too polished. "Fisk," he stepped forward, hands raised. "We don't want trouble," he said, voice slick. "Just came to take back what's ours." Isaiah stepped out onto the porch. "She ain't yours," he said. "She stays 'cause she wants to." Fisk smiled thinly. "You really want to die over an Apache?" Isaiah didn't blink. "I've died over worse." The standoff didn't break the silence. It carved through it, sharp and still. Fisk stood near the fence, a sly smirk curled beneath his dust-lined face. Behind him, the second man stayed mounted, holding both reins, eyes cold. "You interfere, it becomes your problem," Fisk said. Isaiah didn't lower his rifle. "She's free. She was traded property." "I don't care what she was." Isaiah cut in. "She's not yours now, and never was." The man on the horse moved, a hand toward the saddlebag. Isaiah caught the rifle fast. "One more inch, and he don't ride home." The hand froze. Fisk's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "We'll be back. Next time, we don't talk first." Isaiah didn't reply. He just watched them ride off, slow, unhurried, but not in retreat. Planning. Inside, Sanaa shut the door behind him, her breath shaky. "You knew they'd come," she said. Isaiah nodded. "And still you stayed." He looked at her. "I told you I would." That night, the air inside the cabin held a different weight. Not fear, not quite peace either. Resolve. Sanaa sat at the table, revolver disassembled in front of her. Her fingers moved slow but steady, cleaning, loading, checking each chamber. Isaiah reinforced the door, stacked crates, rechecked the trap lines. They didn't speak much. When they did, it was brief, clipped, a language born from trust, not comfort. At one point, she stopped him with a hand to his arm. "You don't owe me this." He paused, then said it soft. "I've done enough running in my life. Enough hiding." Sanaa looked at him long, then nodded. That was all. Later, she sat close, her knee touching his. "You want me here?" she asked. His answer didn't need words, but he gave them anyway. "Yes." She leaned in, this time without fear. Her lips met his, slow and unguarded. And when she stepped back, he didn't chase her. He just stood still, letting her decision linger in the room like truth. The next morning came heavy, too still. Even the mule near the fence barely moved. Sanaa was the first to speak. "If I leave, maybe they stop." Isaiah looked up from sharpening his blade. "No," she frowned. "They'll burn it down. Then we rebuild." She stared at him, eyes scanning for any sign of doubt. She found none. That afternoon, they prepped for war in silence. Isaiah taught her how to lay the ammo belt across the cabin floor, where to aim, when to wait. Sanaa's movements were precise, not angry, not vengeful, deliberate. She had survived cruelty that broke others. And now, she was choosing her weapon, not out of rage, but protection. Before sundown, they shared one meal. Bread, beans, jerky. Sanaa ate without looking up, her shoulders more square now, the limp in her step lighter. Isaiah noticed. So did she. Then the riders came, fast and no pretense. No mercy. Dust cloud behind them like rising thunder. Isaiah stepped outside, rifle raised. Sanaa crouched by the window. When the first shot rang, it wasn't his. It was hers. A crack through the silence, sharp and exact. The second man dropped from his saddle, shoulder torn open, screaming. Fist drew quick, aim at the door. Isaiah dropped to one knee and fired once. The bullet tore through Fist's leg just above the boot. He collapsed with a howl. The horses screamed. Dust twisted. Gunpowder filled the air. Then silence. Heavy, alive. Isaiah rose, rifle still ready. The second man tried crawling. "Drop it." Isaiah barked. The revolver clanked onto dirt. He kicked it away. Walked up to Fisk. Crouched beside him. "You come back again." His voice low, iron cold. "I'd bury you here." Fisk spat blood. "She's not worth it." Isaiah leaned closer. "She's worth more than you'll ever be." Then stood. Turned away. Didn't look back. Just listened. The hooves. The pain. Retreat. Inside. Sanaa was still by the window, shaking, rifle clenched in both hands. Isaiah approached quietly, took the gun from her, slow, gentle. "You're all right." "I shot him," she whispered. Voice cracked. "Not weak, just raw. You did what you had to." She didn't cry. Elder Tanaka stepped forward and spoke in Apache, then switched to broken English. You found her, gave her life again. Isaiah just nodded. Tanaka's gaze lingered. By our law, she belongs to you. Isaiah looked at Sanaa. She stood tall now, hand over her belly, eyes strong. I don't own her, he said quietly. Tanaka nodded once. Then she belongs with you. Same thing. The visitors left at dawn. Sanaa stood at the fence line, watching them fade into the horizon. Her tribe, once lost of memory, had come, offered return, and understood her refusal. She didn't cry. She didn't wave, just stood still with a hand resting over her belly, then turned back toward the cabin. Her cabin. We'll build that extra room soon, she said. Isaiah stood beside her. We. She raised an eyebrow. I've seen how you hammer. He chuckled, shook his head, and followed her back inside. They didn't speak of marriage the way town folks did. There was no preacher, no ring, no contract. But when she called him her husband, he didn't correct her. 3 months passed. The land changed with the season. Mesquite blossoms curled on the fence. The beanstalks reached chest high. Coyotes cried only from a distance now. The cabin didn't look abandoned anymore. The new room had clean walls, a real cot, a table carved by hand. Sanaa moved slowly now, her belly full, her hands always busy. She spoke to the baby in her language, sang sometimes while cooking. Isaiah chopped wood, hauled water, mended traps. The limp in his leg had worsened with the heat. But he didn't complain. He spoke more now. Not loud, but enough, because someone listened. One evening, just after the sun dipped behind the ridge, her voice came steady from the cot. It's time. Isaiah's knife dropped. His chest tightened. He rushed to her side. Sanaa didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just gripped his hand until his knuckles turned white. The labor was long, silent, relentless. Holy, she bled. She shook. She breathed like fire. And then a cry, soft and strong. He held her first, a baby girl, lungs alive with power. He placed her gently on Sanaa's chest. Her eyes welled but didn't break. She's ours, Sanaa whispered. Isaiah sat on the floor beside them, one hand on Sanaa's knee, the other gently cradling their daughter's tiny foot. They named her Alana after Sanaa's mother, a name pulled from ashes and returned to breath. By late summer, the cabin no longer held the scent of survival. It smelled of stewed beans, carved pine, and milk. Isaiah hung laundry from a new fence line. Sanaa nursed Alana under the shade. They didn't talk about the past much, but it lived in a way she guarded the child with her body, and in the way Isaiah never let his rifle get too far. Still, life had returned, the kind that didn't apologize, the kind that didn't ask permission. One afternoon, as he repaired the porch, Isaiah paused and stared inside. Sanaa stood by the window, her silhouette framed in golden light. Alana slept against her shoulder. And for a moment, it didn't look like a survival story anymore. It looked like home. He walked inside, wiped his hands. You feeling all right? Sanaa smiled faintly. Tired. Then sit. You always as bossy? He grinned. Only when I'm right. She sat, not because she had to, because she trusted him. Then she reached for his hand, laced her fingers through his. I thought I'd be married off by 14, she said softly, to some boy from the next camp. That's how it worked. He waited. And now, she whispered, I wake up next to a man who listens. He squeezed her hand. I wake up next to someone who made me stop running. They didn't need vows. They had scars. They had roots. And they had each other. That night, they lay on the floor by the hearth. Alana between them, a fire crackling slow, wind brushing the windows. The world outside still held danger, but inside there was peace. Not perfect, not loud, but real and enough. Sometimes home isn't what you find on a map. It's who still stands with you after the last bullet's been fired.